The storm had already swallowed the road when I saw her. Rain hammered against my windshield as I drove through a quiet stretch of countryside outside Asheville, North Carolina. The sky was almost black, even though it was only late afternoon. Then, through the sheets of rain, I noticed a young woman standing alone near a broken bus stop, soaked from head to toe, clutching a small backpack against her chest. She looked exhausted, frightened, and completely out of place. What I didn't know, then, was that one simple decision, a decision that took less than 10 seconds to make, would change the course of my life forever. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even the smallest act of kindness can create a miracle. My name is Nathan Carter. At the time, I was 38 years old, living alone on a small farm I had inherited from my grandfather. Life was quiet, predictable, and honestly a little lonely. After losing both my parents within a few years of each other, I had buried myself in work. My days were filled with repairing fences, caring for animals, and trying not to think about how empty the house felt when night came. As I drove past the bus stop, I almost kept going. Almost. But something about the look in her eyes stopped me. I pulled over and rolled down the window. The young woman looked startled at first. She couldn't have been older than 23 or 24. Her dark hair clung to her face from the rain, and her hands were trembling from the cold. She explained that her name was Grace Mitchell. She had been traveling to Tennessee for a job interview, but her bus had broken down miles away. The replacement bus never arrived because of the worsening weather. Her phone battery was dead. The nearest motel was full because of a local festival, and she had nowhere to go. I hesitated. Inviting a stranger into your home isn't something most people do. Still, every instinct told me she wasn't dangerous. She was simply stranded. I offered her a place to stay for one night until the storm passed. The answer she gave was not what I expected. Instead of immediately accepting, tears filled her eyes. She looked down at the muddy ground and quietly admitted that she wasn't sure she deserved anyone's kindness anymore. Those words stayed with me. Back at the farmhouse, I gave her dry clothes that had belonged to my cousin and prepared a simple dinner. During the evening, little pieces of her story began to emerge. Grace had spent years caring for her sick mother. When her mother passed away the previous year, Grace lost not only her family, but also the apartment they had shared. Since then, she had been drifting between temporary jobs, trying to rebuild a life that seemed determined to fall apart. What struck me wasn't her hardship, it was her resilience. Despite everything she had endured, she still spoke with gratitude. She still believed people were capable of goodness. She still carried hope. That night after dinner, she noticed an old photograph sitting on my mantel. It was a picture of my mother. Grace stared at it for several seconds before asking where it had been taken. The question surprised me. The photograph had been taken at a small church charity event nearly 20 years earlier. Grace suddenly became emotional. Her mother had attended the same event. As we talked, an incredible connection began to emerge. Years ago, when Grace was only a child, her family had fallen into severe financial trouble. A woman from a local church had anonymously paid several months of their rent, preventing them from becoming homeless. Neither Grace nor her mother had ever known who the donor was. Until that night, the donor had been my mother. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The room felt impossibly still. The kindness my mother had shown decades earlier had quietly protected a little girl she would never meet again. And now, through a chain of events neither of us could have imagined, that same little girl was sitting at my kitchen table. I felt chills. Grace cried openly. For years she had wanted to thank the person who had helped save her family. Now she finally knew who it was. The next morning, the storm cleared. The sun broke through the clouds, lighting the fields with a golden glow. Grace prepared to leave for her interview. Before she left, she handed me a folded letter. She explained that she had written it months earlier. It was a letter addressed to the unknown woman who had once helped her family. Since she now knew the truth, she wanted me to have it. After she drove away with a neighbor who offered her a ride into town, I sat alone on the porch and read every word. The letter spoke about gratitude, faith, perseverance, and the impact a single act of kindness can have across generations. By the time I finished reading, I was crying, not because I was sad, because for the first time since losing my parents, I felt connected to something larger than my own grief. Over the following months, Grace and I stayed in touch. The interview had gone well. She found stable work, rented a small apartment, and slowly rebuilt her life. Meanwhile, inspired by her letter and my mother's example, I started volunteering at local community programs. I opened part of the farm for seasonal charity events and scholarship fundraisers. The loneliness that had defined so much of my life slowly disappeared. I began meeting people, building friendships, and rediscovering purpose, and all of it started because I stopped my truck during a storm. Before we reach the end of this story, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment when a stranger's kindness changed your life? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone who needs hope today. 3 years later, I stood beside Grace at the opening ceremony of a new community resource center designed to help families facing housing difficulties. Together, we dedicated the building to the memory of my mother and Grace's mother. As hundreds of people gathered around us, I looked at the plaque near the entrance. It carried a simple message: kindness never truly ends. It travels farther than we can imagine. In that moment, I finally understood what Grace's answer had meant on that rainy night. When she said she wasn't sure she deserved kindness anymore, she revealed a truth many people carry inside. Life can convince us that we are forgotten, unworthy, or alone. But kindness has a way of proving otherwise. A single act of compassion can echo through years, across families, and into lives we may never even see. And sometimes, when we open a door for a stranger, we discover that God has quietly opened one for us too. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe for more uplifting stories of hope, faith, and second chances. Your support helps these messages reach people who may need encouragement today, because the greatest miracles often begin with something very small, like offering someone a place to stay for just one night, and discovering that the blessing was never meant for them alone.